Hello, my name is Belagar. I'm the head developer for Wainriders, a sub-modification for the Dauntless Days, taking the action back to the 19th century of the Third Age of Middle-earth. Today, this is a 2v2 land battle replay of Rhovanion and Arthedain versus Gondor and the Wainriders, and I am playing as Rhovanion. The rules setup were actually no rules, but everybody more or less conformed to a foot troop missile anyway, limit, just kind of how it worked out. As Rhovanion, I am bringing a large cavalry army, as you can see here, and my teammate rather is Arthedain. Cyrus the Great has brought a mostly infantry-based army. On the Gondorian and Rhovanion side, you're seeing not Rhovanion. On the Wainrider side, you're seeing a very small army, mostly composed of cavalry and chariots, as well as some Easterling tribesmen, some javelin skirmishers. And the Gondorian army is a very balanced, sort of typical army, mixed of infantry and foot archers. No spears, which is going to be a problem in this battle for Gondor. But these armies are very small. I don't think either anybody was really used to the differing capabilities of low-tier units in this mod. Base TDD sort of as an issue where most of your cheap units are non-viable and just not very useful. And in Wainriders, that really couldn't be further from the truth. You have lots of useful cheap units, albeit units that are designed to fill niche roles that aren't necessarily powerful in and of themselves, but in certain scenarios can be very, very useful, or they cover certain weaknesses in your roster. But as you can see, my army is almost entirely composed of cavalry. It is mostly composed of these medium cavalry, the Moje, as well as some Druzina. I think 2 Druzina over there. I have 4 bog hunters. By the way, bog is just the Old Norse word for bow, so it pretty much just means bow hunters, but it's a little more creative to use a different word than just saying bow hunters. And the first action of the match actually involves the Wainriders rushing in a solo Balkoth chariot. This is a chariot unit, mid-tier chariot unit for the Wainriders. It is relatively cheap at 850. It's armed with javelins, and it does have sides on it, so it can charge and do quite a bit of damage to infantry, but it's very lightly armored. It's only 10 armor. It is primarily something that dies very quickly, but does lots of damage. As you can see, he's plowing through Arthedain, as I finally managed to get some cavalry over there to help him and to kill the chariot, but it got roughly 150 kills at the end of its lifespan there. My teammate wasn't quite prepared for it, but he did react well enough. Some casualties were inflicted to a couple different units, but none were wiped out. And here my opponent pulls back the chariots. By the way, the opponent's playing today is Pope John Paul, a YouTuber playing as the Wainriders, and a guy named Aiki playing as Gondor. And keep in mind, everybody was pretty new to the mod, except for me, of course, because I developed it. Arthedain is pushing up his infantry. Arthedain, by the way, is a very infantry-centric faction. Very strong in that regard, and very strong in terms of its missile capability and archers. But it is very poor as far as cavalry goes. You only have 1 unit of Ariador cavalry, which is not a unit I'm particularly proud of. It's not a very aesthetically pleasing unit, so it will probably receive a visual rework at some point in the future. But its role will remain as some sort of light spear-armed cavalry. Here I'm moving over cavalry to the wings, and while this has been going on, I've been cycling back these herders. These are Rhovanian's basic horse archer. I covered, by the way, Rhovanian's whole roster in a faction preview. It's available on the channel now. And the herders are sort of a critical part of your roster. You know, a cheap, very cheap, very effective early game, if you will, quote unquote. Horse archer, nothing fancy, but just very, very useful, quick, with some decent damage. And I'm shooting at these unshielded Wainrider, very heavily armored and very scary Wainrider shock cavalry, including these fire riders of Nirn, who can throw flaming grenades. So just a very, very, very scary unit. And then the Iron Tower Cataphracts with their, let's see here, 75, I believe it is. Yes, 75 armor. That's super heavy mass, so just an extremely deadly cavalry unit. Oh, froze there for a second. Oh, you can see here I am attempting to hunt down these Warwains chariot. However, he is going to get away here in spite of my relative fast-moving Rhovanion cavalry. The Wainriders come in again for a chariot charge. However, this time he makes contact with my teammate's spear line. I don't know why I'm getting these freezes here. The Valkoth chariots charge in, get stuck on the spear line, and are going to die very quickly. And then a second Valkoth chariot does get into the soft underbelly of Arthedain's infantry line. Starts cycling in through. They are taking damage, but they've got about 100 kills now. And as you can see, they drop here, thanks to the intervention of my cavalry before they can get another rear charge. Oh my gosh, I don't know what it is today. I played this replay earlier today, and it was not having these issues. Anyway, Gondor's army, by the way, is mostly composed of Otar, a line of Otar, sort of your basic mid-tier sword unit. Very similar to the Gondor infantry aesthetically, but just using mail surcoats instead of plate, which I find a bit more aesthetically pleasing. It does have, you'd have plate pauldrons and helmets, but something a little more basic, and I feel a little more aesthetically appealing and quote-unquote realistic. And of course, this is this is Middle-earth we're talking about, not particularly realistic. And also some Chieftain of Orthanc in the back. I explained the lore behind this unit in the original preview for Wainriders, all the way back in August of 2023, but this unit has received a significant aesthetic makeover thanks to assets from Thrones of Britannia. So these guys look much better. Very visually appealing unit. I am trying to get after his general with some javelins, but unfortunately don't get the time there. Rhovanion princes charging out to engage my Bold Moshe. If you're wondering, this does again take place during the 19th century. When I say 19th century, it's the 1850s of the Third Age, which I know sounds odd, given the links to our 19th century, but I assure you there's no top hats or steam engines here. Rhovanion princes. Lore behind this unit is in Appendix A, I believe, of the Fellowship of the Ring. Tolkien goes into a Gondorian expedition to the north to assist the King of Arnor in the 1970s of the Third Age, 1975 of the Third Age. And the cavalry, when they arrive in Lindon, the Gondorian cavalry are not described as Gondorians, they're described as proud princes of Rhovanion. And presumably they didn't come from the Aotheod, given the massive journey that those people, who in any case are the descendants of the people of Rhovanion, given the massive distances they would have to cover. So these are obviously supposed to be Northmen in the service of Gondor, especially considering that as early as 1400 of the Third Age, you have settlements of Northmen communities in Gondor around the time of the Kinstrife. I believe it was King Eldakar, who was half Northman on his mother's side. So, anyway, that's the explanation. If you're wondering why there are Rhovanion cavalry in Gondor's army. It's essentially, think of them like sort of barbarian auxilia, or federati troops. Bog hunters are engaging, getting some cheeky shots into fire riders of Nern, just chipping away at the numbers and their HP. Kill a couple of them. As you can see, it's just sort of a slow-paced skirmish for now, but in a little while, in about a minute or two, the actual engagement is going to commence. That's going to be very, very quick, due to all the cavalry and the chariots that both sides have. Swan Knights of Belfalas are going to be attempting something. Not quite sure what, and following up with the Rhovanion princes. Seems they were thinking about some kind of charge. Red Shields of Fornost, a shielded heavy archer, engaging them. They charge into Kingdom Militia, admittedly a basic unit of spears, but it's still spears, and these are melee cavalry. And this is not going to go well. Getting sandwiched by the Rhovanion cavalry, poor quality though they are, and the Kingdom Militia are losing that engagement. However, it's still not something that's going to go well for them. The Velmoje reinforcing. I do pull them out here to engage or tempting target the Warwains, his chariots, and get them in charge. These chariots do very poorly against cavalry, so I start massing cavalry. The proper cavalry engagement begins here, between depleted cataphracts and my Druzina Velmoje as the fire riders of Nern throw their grenades. So the blobfest has sort of begun here. If you look at the balance bar is roughly even. So this is a very close battle. Anyone's game at this point, but the Rhovanion princes sadly just such a majestic unit thrown away like that into masses of heavy infantry, unfortunately. Otar engaging the spearmen at arms. They should win that fight, excluding any outside intervention. It is a sword unit versus a spearman, after all. I run away from engaging the Swan Knights, which are a vastly superior unit, at least at first, but he does turn around, and I use that speed and make contact with them. And the Swan Knights don't get a charge off, and they're just going to get cut to pieces by these spear-armed melee cavalry. That's so unfortunate, because the Swan Knights are such a powerful unit, and really the core of Gondor's cavalry. And I start to wheel my horse archers, followed up by melee cavalry, around the back of the Wainrider and Gondorian lines. Velmoje charging into the eastern tribesmen, who are armed with axes and melee, but their defense is very, very low, so it's not going to do them much good. And get another charge on the eastern tribesmen. And I'm just looking to silence these archers, so I charge into melee with my brigaders, which again are light bow cannon, not something that are primed to kill much in melee, but I just want to tie them down. I'm firing. Those lighter border bowmen, however, are going to take a lot of damage. And Druzina coming in. Otar bows engaged in melee. They are armored, but they're only equipped with daggers, and so they're not particularly suited for combat. The Easterling tribesmen about to die. I wrap up the cavalry fight over here, between where the cataphracts, who had been shot at quite a bit earlier, and were getting 2v1 up to 3v1 at certain points, are overrun. My general, my princes, Druzina, and the Velmoje are over there. On the infantry front, my ally is still struggling, and I don't notice these chieftains of Orthanc charging and attacking the Bog Hunters. My ally's got his Rangers for Arthedain here. Rangers, if you're sort of wondering, are different from the base game. They're sort of half strength units with guerrilla deployment, with stock and snipe so they can fire without being seen. They have extremely high damage and rate of fire. They're just excellent archers, but they're not good at being shot at. However, they're not too expensive, so they're sort of high-value target killing type of units is a way to think about them. Though they may see a tweak in the future to be full-size archers. These things are all subject to change. Otar get charged by Velmoje, and even though they weren't braced, these are melee cavalry, so they're not particularly devastating charge mid-tier Otar like that. So they are going to struggle even against a sword unit like that if they stay in melee. Rangers up to 30 kills. And the blob fight here sees the Velmoje perish to the Chieftains of Orthanc. Troll Hunters are another interesting unit. They're armed with 2 javelins. They also have stock and guerrilla deployment. And once they are out of their ammunition, they use 2-head axes. So a multi-role unit, very much what it says on the tin. They definitely are very good at killing trolls. Druzina, now tired, come in for a side attack on the Block 20 of the White Tree, which is Gondor's General's bodyguard. A very, very deadly tanky unit of infantry. Otar bows and the Gondor archers being wrapped up by the cavalry as they come in for a cycle charge with the Druzina and the Prince's retinue, or Princess Druzina. I mean, it's basically the same thing. Druzina in various Slavic languages essentially means retinue or companion. Companions is a more accurate translation. So you could essentially think of it like the Norse sword Huskarl. Very similar connotations there. Druzina going in for another charge, hoping to break the Gondorian general. This is pretty much the last unit still engaged for the enemy, so we're just getting a nice close-up view of the cavalry. And they are getting quite a few kills. I believe they're up to over 100 kills and rapidly climbing. It's a very difficult unit to deal with, befitting the role of a general's bodyguard. Proud Dunedain, higher percentage of Numenorean heritage. And here we have the Arthedain general, the remnant of the Calabeth, as well. A very heavy spear unit with 70. And the Chieftains of Orthanc are rounding off the field with 150 kills. Very solid performance from them, and that's the end of the battle. Pyrrhic victory, and let's see the kills. As you can see, the Wainrider army was very, very small, not too surprising considering the large numbers of chariots and cavalry. My army, this is Cyrus's army. He brought 2 Dunedain March Wardens, 4 Knights of Arnor, a Troll Hunter, Kingdom Militia, 3 Spearmen at Arms, and 2 archers and a cavalry unit. And I brought 4 archers, 4 Bog Hunters, a bunch of Velmoje. I believe this is 7 units, 8 units of Velmoje, 2 Druzina, and 4 herders. Pope John Paul brought Great Wains, 2 Easterling tribesmen, 2 Fire Riders of Nern, 3 Iron Tower Cataphracts, a very expensive investment, 2 Step Chariots, 3 Balkoth Chariots, and a War Wain. And Aiki brought the army that I explained in the battle, just some bows, some cavalry, Swan Knights, infantry, and Chieftain of Orthanc. So yeah, I hope this was a good example of the mod, and a good way to show off Rhovanion. You don't have to play with an all-cavalry army. As a Rhovanion, you do have a few infantry options, but you're very much a cav faction. And that sort of should give you an idea of how you play them. You have to be pretty cautious. You have to skirmish a lot. The faction doesn't necessarily have any high charge cavalry, anything capable of doing tons of damage. You're really all about securing cav superiority early, winning the cavalry fights with your abundance of spear-armed cavalry, which all have bonuses against other cav, and then using that cavalry to the best of their ability, in spite of the fact that they're not shock cavalry with high charges. Hopefully, I will be previewing Angmar next, which has seen some changes with this update. Though, unfortunately, the replay I was hoping to showcase does not work, which is unfortunate because it was a 3v3 and it was a very, very good battle. But anyway, look forward to that, and I will see you next time.